Being human with you. No evil, you need to know evil to truth seek. Unbelief we must reconcile. See, hear and speak. No greater cause than to let the secret of love's light leak. Unpause no more, open the truth and cry out. See, hear and speak. No blind light to lose your way. No deaf ear to truth today. No voiceless heart, let me hear you say, see, hear, and speak. Welcome to episode 2 of Being Human with You. This is a discussion-based podcast. It's not interviews. It will include others in the future already. I know that in advance, and I will be sharing more about that later. I want to begin with gratitude and thank those who have voiced their thoughts, their feelings, their additions, the expansion of the subjects that we're discussing. And I'm going to reach out. I'm going to reach out with a thought of more. It's not to say I'm not ungrateful for what's already been received, but it is to say I really, really welcome more comments. There's no scarcity, no poverty in that. The basis of this is me and you. Even if I'm not going into negativity, but it is what I thought, and I tend to work in flow. Even if I continue as I am, and there's not a great deal of response, I'm not saying there isn't, by the way, there has been. I would love it for it to increase. Why? Because then there's more of us. And that's what this is all about. We started with communication in episode 1. We've had a Friday reflection of episode 1. We're now into the second week. Every Monday will be a brand new podcast. This will be streamed, video to YouTube, audio to Spotify. So even if you've watched the video, you're sat at home or in the garden if the weather's good, wherever you might be, and you're watching the content that's being shared with you, you can still listen. And you can listen safely when you're driving. Then come back with some more thoughts. Drop in a comment, whether that's to the YouTube channel, whether that's within Spotify, whether that's across the social media platforms that this is being shared. And I would say predominantly, in no particular order, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. That's where I will share, even if it's snippet videos of the content that's being shared here. So last week we talked about, and if you've not watched the episode already, it's going to be there, catch up, join in the discussion, communication, and particularly initiating conversation, communication with strangers, those we don't know, going about our business. How can we do that? And I think we're now going to be talking this week about one of the barriers to that, which is trust. When trust has been broken so many times, when it's been betrayed, and we've all experienced that, if we are going to be really, really deep diving into honesty, we've betrayed trust at times. I don't think there's many human beings that can't say that's the case of them. Possibly less than other people, but certainly I would suggest that's happened. We've all betrayed the trust of others in some shape or form. I'm not minimizing that. I'm just saying that's being human. So we recognize, one, we've done that. We recognize we've been on the receiving end of having our trust betrayed. This is an issue of communication. It's an issue of humanity. And it's one we do well to face together. Because if we lose complete trust, we end up having no trust. Zero trust. Trust is gone. Trust is dead. Then, where are we going? How are we going to be able to carry on? Now, when we think of, which I try not to talk too much about because I want to talk about being human. I don't want to talk about President Trump or Donald Trump, whatever term you want to use, Piers Morgan, Russell Brand, whoever it might be, this particular archbishop, etc., 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 political leader said, Keir Starmer said. What are we doing with that? Where's that going? And I'm not saying those individuals, all of them, but of course, we don't necessarily know these people. We don't know them, perhaps like the circle of people around them. So how can we trust? When we think of media, politics, religion, to some degree, even education, it's been established there have been certainly injustices and trust has been broken. Totally. Even including in recent times as well, with some tragic, devastating, traumatic results. That's not what we're talking about. So you might wonder why. Well, I want to actually highlight this is different. This is a discussion, if you like, amongst the rest of us. How can we, as everyday people going about our business, making our way in life, we're not part of some mainstream media or organization or religious cult or sect. We don't particularly have this entrenched left or right political view. We're trying to connect with our fellow human beings. I don't feel that's an isolated group. I don't feel that's a small group. I think that's a major group. And it's finding ways that we're not breaking off into schisms, into sectarian, separatist groups, whether that be believers or unbelievers, if that resonates with you. Focus more on being human. So this thought of trust, and we are going to have continual episodes on this. I'm hoping, if you would have watched the Friday Reflections, you would have seen me delivering a walk and talk live in TikTok, and lady named Sarah, SJ Bonnie Lass in TikTok, came into the live, put in the comments, do you fancy, do you want me to join you? And I wasn't quite too sure whether that was now or in the future or etc. Long story short, watch the Friday Reflections. You will see just a little snippet of Sarah joining me in that walk and talk live. That was evidence of trust, courage, humanity. So there's more of that coming, because this subject of trust isn't, of course, one-dimensional. It's not something that's just experienced by men. It's experienced by women and men and women. How can we, in our overall relationships, connections, grow and expand trust? And we had a discussion. I may even include a small clip with myself and Sarah. I don't think I've got time to edit it into widescreen, so it will be a little window of Sarah in a camera in the bottom of the portrait image. However, you'll get the vibe, you'll get the thrust of what we were talking about. And I think this subject of earning trust needs to be talked about further. For me, I'm not criticizing the term, many people use it, gaining trust, gaining. That feels a little bit more positive. Maybe that's my own personal experience. Certainly, trust has to be developed. It has to be developed. The earning side of things, I think, is something I'm going to be talking with Sarah about, which is, what about if somebody puts terms on another human being that level of trust that they're expecting that the other person needs to earn is imbalanced, and it is actually requiring a level that can't be attained. It's unattainable. I'm sure you understand where I'm coming from with trust, because we are all human. So that's a topic for discussion. What matters? Again, perhaps discussions around words. I've shared this in a recent TikTok live. Words are cheap. Actions count larger than words. And I understand those thoughts, but words are important too, because words can give a demonstration of course, what's inside somebody. Now, the difficulty with it is if somebody speaks only and doesn't act according to. Ultimately, in an extreme sense, that's hypocrisy. So the mouth is saying one thing and the behavior is saying something completely different. But also, I'm being a little bit devil's advocate now, that comes to a level of expectation. Is it that perhaps the person is expecting too much of the other person with regard to what they desire, want from them? They're holding them to their own standard, and that standard potentially is unreasonable. I think that's fractionally a different topic. I personally, I'm going to be open and honest. That's partly why I'm beginning this podcast. I don't have any definitive answers to how we can gain trust. It takes time. That's one thing. It takes honesty and openness. So at times when people request truth, and of course truth and trust are very similar, when people request truth, at times, friendships, relationships, when you give somebody the truth, then they suddenly don't want it. They request it, but when they receive it, they don't want it. What do you think about that? Is that something you've experienced? Are there ways that we can promote greater honesty and openness? Around this topic, when I did the TikTok live, not the one I did with Sarah, but I was talking about World Voice Day, Thursday, trying to remember dates now off the top of my head, 16th of April, actually at time of recording. And then I talked about voicing victory and adversity. So feeling that we're comfortable, I think it's easier to share victory. But what about adversity? That takes a level of trust. That takes a level of truth. So that openness and honesty. And then the subject of men came up in terms of men being open and honest. And Sarah was in the live, and we both at the same time talked about an organisation. I don't often shout out to organisations, but this one I've heard a lot about and seen. Not witnessed yet, but will do. Andy's Man Club. And every Monday they meet together across the country. So there are setups, there are meetings for men to come together. Don't necessarily have to share, don't necessarily have to speak, but it's a safe place for men to gather together and in a healthy environment communicate, both speaking and listening. At some point in the future, I know I will attend a meeting, I know I will. But I do feel we are living in a system that talks about things, but doesn't necessarily provide a way around the situation. So, for example, I know men and women have negative reputations in their own individual ways. But it was still living at a time where I do feel it is discouraged for men to be open and honest. If I shared exactly how I feel, at times, I don't think it would be a particularly popular message. So therefore, of course, naturally, you can't help but think, well, I don't think I'll share that then. Now, that's not about being popular. That's just about being closed down. So whilst it's spoken about it being welcomed, I think in reality it's different. So we have the same impasse. We have the same blockage. And it is the same in a different way for women in terms of trust and the experience. But nobody has superiority over the other. So with regard to trust, we betray it and we've been betrayed. I'm not making light of it. I'm not. It is a difficult topic. it does take time. That's probably the most offering I've got. And of course, the aspect of this discussion is not that I'm providing the answers. I'm not in a pulpit. I'm not in Parliament. I'm not in a place of claiming that I'm now going to declare the answers. Here are the answers. The collectivism, if this is anything, of us coming together and discussing. Now, you might pop in the comments. You might put in the comments, wow, okay, that is something that's good to talk about, trust. What I will do with your comments is then take those into the Friday reflections. I'm really hoping it's going to work with Sarah for episode 3, which will be talking about earning/gaining trust. And I think the reason I'm going to be open now, and I'll talk to Sarah about this openly, with no problem at all. I feel at times, in the experience I've had, and of course as a man, that there's always this feeling of needing to work, needing to work hard. And work hard in some relationships to an unrealistic, unreliable, unattainable level. So straight away it creates pressure and at times a ridiculous way of feeling that you have to earn this trust. I'm not criticizing the phrase, I'm not, because many use it. I understand it, but I think there's more to be discussed around it. So I feel that would be a really, really good topic with Sarah. We did agree we're going to try and fit this in, whether or not it's next episode or beyond. I'm not overly too sure. But where I want to go with this, because I do feel this is probably a 3-parter or a 4, 5, 6-parter, the subject of trust. Go into the comments. That's the real place where I know the discussions that we're going to have are going to grow. Because of course, otherwise I'm not limiting me. I'm somebody here who is expressing my experience. Fine. That's fine. I've got no problem with that. That's what I've got. I do see it through the eyes of others. I do, through listening and through discussions. I do. But I want to grow that even more. And therefore, that's where the comments come in. That's where the being human with you really, really lifts off more. Because I capitalize it for a reason. You are the plural. You are the plural. I will share what I share, of course. My voice. I have no fear, no embarrassment around that. But I want to join with you. And I want to find out. I think, do you know what? That's a really good point. I hadn't perhaps looked at it in that way. How can we broaden it? And that's the key. Not to tear down, not to destroy, not to own, not to rinse, not to expose corruption, expose abuse in institutionalized corruption and abuse, whether that's political, religious, media, academia. But the rest of us, we're doing the best we can. And that's where I really want us to come from. So we started with opening music, See, Hear and Speak. This is a song that's been remixed, reformed, if you like, and will be released late spring, early summer. At time of recording, I'm expecting to receive today masters of 10 tracks for the brand new album, Oversoul, The Reform. I'm going to play out. You're going to hear the song again in a moment with a different video. I'm also going to play out with a song that's coming up from the album. It's the penultimate track, and the song is called How to Make Your Own Society. 2 songs to play out with, 2 videos if you're watching in YouTube. How to Make Your Own Society, which is the penultimate track from the upcoming album, Oversoul, The Reform, and the opening track, See, Hear and Speak. The more we can continue to do that together, the better. The more we can have not just this isn't the only one. There are many, many other people hosting forums, platforms, discussions that are positive, and what I mean by that is uplifting, engaging. I'm not saying positive, negative. I'm not a great fan of that polarity, but it is something that's going somewhere rather than destruction, doom. Humanity is here to destroy each other. No, we're not. That's one of the lies that we're fed. We're not here to be divided. We can achieve so much together. 2 songs to play out with. I look forward to being with you very soon. I'm hoping episode 3 will be with Sarah. And also, really, really crucial concluding thought. Yes, you can like. Yes, you can subscribe. Those things will be amazing. Above all else, comment. Talk about trust. Why is it a challenge? How can we improve trust? And let's dive in deeper together. And I know either way, whether it's myself and Sarah together and yourselves, very importantly, we're going to talk about trust next time anyway. Much love to you. Take care. Keep being the incredible human being that you are. Much love, and I look forward to seeing you very soon. Remember, there is, of course, the audio in Spotify as well. Look forward to seeing you next time. Bye-bye. Well, in the same way as a prolonged period of time. But I do feel it's important because I have noticed, not everybody, but I've noticed a lot of people feel they can't trust anyone. And I think that's the problem. That's a big problem. Because where do we go?
Understandable, though.
It is. I'm not saying it's not at all. Where do we go with that, though?
Yeah, how do we regain that faith and that trust in other humans? It's a good question.
Well, it's also as well, slightly being devil's advocate, that sometimes when we've had patterns of behaviour in others that have led us to lose trust, then we meet somebody who perhaps has a similar way of being from our perception.
And similar again, MO.
Yeah, and I'm again sharing my own personal experience. They're both ways.
Yeah.
Where perhaps somebody has perceived me because I've demonstrated something that they saw in somebody else. But the problem with that is, I think there are people who would destroy trust, and permanently it is ongoing destructive. There are many of us. We can let people's trust go. I know I've done that. I'm not going to claim to say that I am the most trustworthy person alive, because I think that's a mistake.
None of us are perfect.
No, exactly. So I wonder, when we got those feelings of that risk assessment you talked about, which I think was absolutely brilliant. I really do.
My friend's mum always said, you'll meet people in your life and everyone has something wrong with them, but it's to the level of acceptability that you can live with. So you maybe meet someone and a lot of their behaviors are totally unacceptable. So you know that there's no way that you could maybe have someone like that in your life consistently. Yeah. Whereas there's someone else is going to have things that annoy you and they're going to trigger you. That's going to happen. But maybe not to the same extent as the other person. So it's getting the lesser of the, what you can accept and what you can live with.
It's time to come together now. Manufactured common junk. Together let's teach peace education. Blueprint messages with more than a hint. Time to rip it up and start again. No man fabrication. System imagine. What's the next hymn then? The next addictive trend is sobriety. Rip it up, no more propaganda, stitching up. Let's make our own society. Addicted to comparison, rip it up and start again. Addicted to comparison. Let's make our own society. See, hear, and speak. No evil, you need to know evil to truth see. Unbelief we must reconcile. See, hear, and speak. No greater cause than to let the secret of love's light lead. Unpause no more, open the truth and cry out. See, hear, and speak. No blind light to lose your way. No deaf ear to truth today. No voiceless heart, let me hear you say. See, hear, and speak. See, hear, and speak. See,